As I'm filming this today, it is June 16th. I believe the official first day of summer was June 21st, if I remember correctly. It is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. We are approaching that quickly. A lot has changed in the 3 months since starting my garden, actually about like 4 months or so. In February, when I started the garden, I was about 8-9 months pregnant, sowing all those dang seeds and planting the plants with the intention to have a massive garden, and that's what we had accomplished. It's a little bit overwhelming at times, especially with a 3-month-old baby, and just looking around like, oh my gosh, that needs to be harvested, that needs to be pulled out, that needs to be de-weeded. We need to figure out a way to preserve this and that. And what I'm really here to talk about is what are my biggest regrets for the garden this year? What have I loved growing the most this year, and what would I not grow again? So this year we did about 50 tomato plants. I loved having that many tomato plants. It's been awesome. We've been having like a huge harvest. I've been figuring out how to can and preserve. I've made salsa, tomato sauce, sun-dried tomatoes, eaten with them, freezing them. I mean, my gosh, it's been a lot of tomatoes. I would definitely recommend the pineapple tomatoes if you're looking for an interesting variety with sizable fruits that isn't going to let you down, because sometimes these kind of interesting, crazy looking varieties don't always pack the most flavor to them. So if you're asking me, are these going to be on my garden list in the future? Yes, always. Celery. So I grew 2 different varieties of celery this year. I grew the Chinese pink celery variety, and I also grew the Utah variety of celery. They were just as easy to grow, both varieties, and I did both from seed at the same time. What I will say is the pink celery, it's a little bit harder, I would say, and that might be because of just like my irrigation. Maybe it's getting too much sun and not enough water. That could be the case, but the Utah celery has definitely withstood the heat a little bit better. It's crunchier and it's that typical kind of like celery flavor. So the 5-color Swiss chard behind me, it's been awesome. No regrets, no complaints. This plant has withstood lots of different heat waves. It's been 95+ degrees and we've still got beautiful, healthy looking leaves behind us. Yes, they are on the outs, basically. They're kind of over the heat, I would say. I need to start a new round, and most of my plants in general are going to have a hard time through the summertime, but I will say for when I started them and how hot it's been, the Swiss chard, 5-color Swiss chard, has been doing phenomenal. All right, cattle panel trellises. This is a really big topic for a lot of gardeners because it's a big trend. Everybody loves it. It's really affordable and it looks awesome in your garden. What to plant on your cattle panel trellises is really important because it's going to be inviting, it's going to look nice, and you also don't want to waste something that's not going to really cover it as well for the whole season. So for me, my goal is to cover the trellises, and what I didn't really take into account is that there are some varieties of tomatoes that are determinate and some that are indeterminate. So a determinate tomato variety is a variety that has like a determined height, basically. Just think of it like that. They're only going to get probably like 6-7 feet tall, and then they're going to let out like a big flush of fruits and then kind of be done with it. An indeterminate tomato variety is going to be a variety that's just going to continue to grow into really like basically for the life of the actual plant, and you're going to be able to harvest off of them for a longer period of time. So like my cherry tomato plant, that is an indeterminate variety, and it has basically gone over the entire cattle panel trellis. So what I didn't think about is I just kind of did everything. I planted all of my tomato plants on the trellises, and I've got a bunch of bald trellises at the top because most of the varieties that I picked are determinate varieties. So keep that in mind if you're going to put tomatoes specifically on your cattle panel trellises, because the goal is to, cover them up and have it be this like really like mystical kind of look, like, oh my gosh, there's just like tomatoes in an arch. What I'm gonna do next year is plant, or not next year, just like this next season in general, I'm not waiting a year to garden. What I'm gonna do next is plant different varieties of trellising things like beans, cucumbers. I'm gonna mix it up, probably do some sugar baby watermelons. Yes, you can trellis watermelons. They will need some support, and especially if it's like a smaller variety, it's definitely possible. So I'm going to just kind of mix it up so that it's something fun to look at, and we've got just some diversity on the kettle panel trellises. All right, so the peppers, we're onto our pepper raised bed. I have absolutely loved the banana peppers this year. Out of our 4 plants, we're getting like literally buckets of banana peppers, which is awesome because I feel like they're really similar in, of course, heat index. There's no heat index really to like a bell pepper. Much more practical to cook with and include in many different meals. A lot of people might think that banana peppers have a different kind of flavors than they actually do. They're pretty neutral, I would say. You might think that they're more tangy than they are because they're typically enjoyed pickled, but they're really not. They're pretty neutral with a teensy bit of a tang flavor. So these plants will really pump out a lot more than like your actual bell pepper plant is going to pump out, and you can use them just the same, I would say. Although they are smaller, not really good for like big stuffing peppers, although you can stuff them. They're just more practical of a pepper variety for me. Now, what I want to do is basically grow what we're gonna eat, of course, and we grew Tabasco peppers. I'm going to attempt to make hot sauce with them, but if I was to go back at the beginning of spring, I don't think I would use up so much space. I would probably plant these in like a little pot instead of planting them in my raised bed, because they're just not a pepper that we use all the time. They do have like a really interesting spice to them, but I regret not growing more like jalapenos and poblano peppers, which are definitely peppers that we typically eat and cook with very regularly. Next, we're on to our snake beans. I hate to say it because they look super cool, and the beans are like, oh, the beans are crazy long. They're like over 2 feet long, I would say. So what I've noticed with the snake beans is that ants really love them for some reason. I don't know why, maybe it's like the actual flowers, but I've never seen ants attracted to a bean like that before. And let me know in the comment section if you've grown these and that's been your experience, because I would like to know if that's typical of this plant. So for that reason alone, I probably wouldn't grow them again. We just didn't really eat them. I didn't really enjoy the flavor of them. So personally, I'm just not gonna grow them again. So that's what I would take off my list. They get to be super long. Like, it's just a really crazy kind of abundant plant that's just not working for me personally. I don't know why. Behind me is the old German tomatoes. Now I can't really give like a solid review on these because they are just now starting to ripen. So that would be my biggest review of these, is that they're really late to ripen. I started all of my tomato plants all at the same time. I've been having most of my other beefsteak tomato varieties already producing, giving me beefsteaks, and the old German tomato variety is just now starting to get to a point where I can harvest off of them. And now it is June, started these seeds in February. So just keep that in mind. They look like a really sizable plant. They look like they're gonna be really beautiful. But if you're in a rush to start enjoying like certain tomatoes and things like that from your garden, the old German one's gonna take a while. I'm next to my Floridade variety of tomatoes. And if you're new to my channel, just know, like I said before, I just had a baby and I didn't get around to trellising most of my tomato plants. So they're all over the ground, but that's just what you're gonna get with this channel this year. Anyways, the tomato Floridade variety has been just like a really good all around like classic tomato. It's a small variety. It's not like a huge beefsteak, so you're going to get a lot off of them, and it's just more practical for everyday use. So if you're looking for just a classic tomato, pick the Floridade variety. This is my moneymaker tomato plant. It's probably my favorite tomato plant this year because it's in between a cherry tomato and like a regular typical store size variety tomato. I don't really know like what those are called. So it's a really good versatile size, and it also is producing like crazy. So I would definitely grow the moneymaker tomatoes again. I'm glad I added these to the list, and they're also really good for juicing and making tomato sauce out of them. They just go straight through the juicer, no problems at all. My purple sprouting broccoli is like really tall. I'm standing up right now and it's like at my, waist length or whatever. But we don't have any purple sprouting shoots from the broccoli. And I will say that's likely just because it's like super hot and it's not really the best time to grow brassicas, which is just like broccolis and cauliflower, things like that, of that nature, if you're new to gardening and everything. The good thing about the purple sprouting broccoli is that even though there aren't any broccoli flowers to harvest, you can still eat the leaves. So would I grow them again in the spring? No, I would just grow them again in the fall. I'm on to the eggplants, which have just now started to give us eggplants. Awesome. Love growing eggplants. Typically with eggplants, if you're new to growing them like from seed, for example, they are going to be like the last thing to start fruiting, basically. They take a while to start coming to maturity. That's why if you can overwinter them, that would be awesome, because then you can just immediately go right into growing them again. Same thing with peppers. Eggplants are going to take at least like 4, sometimes 5 months to go from seed to harvest kind of status. So just keep that in mind if you're frustrated with your eggplants, like what is going on? I started these such a long time ago. You're going to just now start to see them ready to harvest. Next, we're moving on to the Cherokee tomatoes. Now, this is a classic variety that everybody just absolutely loves. It's just like one of the best beefsteak tomatoes, right? And I have grown Cherokee tomatoes before where I've loved them and they've had a really deep, rich colors to them, but for some reason this year, which is why I really want to bring this up, they were like Splitsville when it comes to splitting, the most splitty tomatoes out of all of my beefsteak varieties, which is really disappointing because I'm talking like really split all over the top. You can definitely enjoy tomatoes when they're split. There's no problem with that. It does just open them up more for pests to get in there if you're not harvesting it right away. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. However, I'm just surprised why it did that. And I think the reason is because I planted these in pots this year, and maybe that has something to do with it. Whenever I've planted them in my sizable raised beds, I've never had that problem before. So I will be growing Cherokee tomatoes again next year. However, I'm going to be planting them in either the raised beds or in one of my garden rows behind me, behind me somewhere, sorry, or in one of my garden rows, to see if there's any type of a change. Personally, as of right now, I would not recommend growing Cherokee tomatoes in a pot. That's just what my personal experience. All right, we're going to the oozin'. Oh my gosh, I swear I just found these. Oh my goodness. Okay, there's all of these beautiful caterpillars all over my little carrots. Oh my gosh, I will show you. I just saw one and I'm like, I just saw another and I just saw another. Caterpillars are welcome in my garden, okay? This is not a problem for me. Just go ahead, do what you want. All right, I gotta stop and show you this. So I'm seeing at least 4 or 5 of these. I think they're monarch butterfly caterpillars. One of you lovely people, please let me know in the comments what they are. I'm sure one of you guys know. I'm gonna pull up a carrot that doesn't have a caterpillar on there and show you what these ones look like. I love growing carrots. They smell amazing, taste so awesome from your garden. These are some kind of yellow variety, but they're growing successfully just fine. I would grow them again. Just a second ago, a hummingbird was right next to my cherry tomato plant. the second that it came in here, it saw me, it was like, and then it flew out of here. I hate that I didn't get that on video for you guys, but there is like so much really cool stuff going on right now in the garden. The caterpillars, the hummingbirds, the butterflies, the bees. That's why I love gardening. All right, my biggest garden regret this year. I know you guys are probably gonna, a lot of people are probably gonna have different opinions on this, all right? So, there's reasons I have a regret for this particular thing. It's my cherry tomatoes. We have now concluded, my husband and I, that we are not really a cherry tomato household. We're just not. So we planted 4 cherry tomato plants on my cattle panel trellis, and as you can see, they're booming. There's just more than I know what to do with them. When I was really excited about them because I was like, oh, we can make sauce out of these. And I know you can still make tomato sauce out of them. But when I went to juice them in my like tomato juicer thing, which you can see in one of my tomato sauce videos, they were like unjuiceable. And if they're unjuiceable and there's like 1,000 of them, it makes it really hard for me to make a lot of use out of them. Yes, you can do like sun-dried tomatoes and you can enjoy them on salads and things like that, but there's only so much of that you can do, in my opinion. So for us and how we enjoy and use tomatoes, the cherry tomato at this level of production, it's too abundant for us to make the best use out of it. What I'm going to do next time, because I feel like I'm always going to want to grow at least like one plant of a cherry tomato, I'm gonna just plant them in a pot so that it's just like one contained cherry tomato plant. I think that's all we need for our use of them, because I do enjoy them in salads or in certain dishes, roasted, and those that feta dish that everybody enjoys with like tons of tomatoes around it. So I do enjoy it that way. I just don't need like literally buckets of cherry tomatoes. So for me, it's gonna be a pot plant next year. So for me, it's gonna be a plant that I grow in a pot next year. But am I not gonna grow? Again, I hate to say this, the Black Beauty beefsteak tomatoes or whatever they are, they're just like a sizable tomato. I'm not growing these again. They look so cool, and there's one of those like stink bugs on them. They look really cool, and they're sizable. I'm sure they're really high in like antioxidants because they're dark in nature, but I don't know, we just didn't really enjoy them that much. I will say, if you are interested in growing the Black Beauty tomatoes, that they produce a lot. So if you're wanting a plant that's going to produce a lot, they're purple, black, they look cool, then hey, add it to your list. It just wasn't really for us. All right, we're next to the Brandywine tomatoes. This has been my favorite classic beefsteak, like sizable tomato variety that we grew this year. So I loved the pineapple ones, and I love the Brandywine tomatoes. These have hardly split. I'm talking like the only time that they ever had any splits was after a really heavy week of rain, and at that, it still wasn't bad. So if you're looking for a variety that's not very susceptible to splitting, so far the Brandywine tomato has been excellent when it comes to that. I know I'm talking a lot about tomatoes here, but you know, that's a pretty big thing for most people with their gardens. And that's a big thing for my garden this year. All right, we've got the San Marzano tomatoes. Yes, I would grow these all the time, every year. They've been awesome. Beautiful, excellent sauce tomatoes. They're revered as one of the best sauce tomatoes in the world among chefs. So yes, I'm always going to grow these things. And now that I'm doing my own canning and making my own tomato sauce, you know, paste variety tomatoes are really of high interest to me. So the San Marzanos have been awesome. Next year I'm going to try like some Amish paste and like Hungarian heart paste tomatoes. That's my only regret, is just not having more paste variety tomatoes for more sauce. Right now our strawberry plants are in full swing. I don't know if these are like June bearing strawberry plants or if they are the ever bearing strawberry plants. I think they're June bearing because right now we got like 1,000 strawberries. So my only regret is not growing more strawberry plants or not cloning more when they were starting to produce all their little runners. Next time they start to produce their runners, like in the early spring, I'm just going to do like a whole huge raised bed of strawberry plants. That way we can just like literally have enough that we don't even have to buy them from the store, and we can preserve them. So my biggest regret of the garden this year is definitely not planting enough garlic. I planted about 150 cloves, which turned into about 150 heads of garlic, I hope. We'll see. And I wish I would have planted double the amount. In July, which is coming up here really soon, I'm definitely going to film a garlic harvest. I'm really interested to see how many actually come out of it. But we didn't utilize this bed to the best of its ability, and we could have totally just doubled the amount and had like over 300 actual heads of garlic to harvest. And we eat garlic like crazy. We eat it so much. So that's my biggest regret, is just not growing more of it because it's so dang easy. So if you're already subscribed to my channel, you would know this is our first year of doing the no dig, no till in-ground garden rows. And let me tell you, I just didn't know what to expect, but it's been so awesome. We grew a lot of different squash. The gray zucchini was amazing. I would definitely grow that again. I would highly recommend it. Very tasty fruits on the sweeter side. We also grew the crooked neck zucchini in here. It's like a yellow variety with some like bumpy texture on it. I'm probably just not going to grow that again next year because they were really hard. They had really hard exterior on the outside. So that's what I would say about the crooked neck. I would probably just grow like a softer variety of a summer squash in here. But they all did awesome. We were like throwing zucchini at friends like and family, like, please take the zucchini because I don't know what to do with it. Next year I'm going to research some better preservation tactics, or like when I start to try to grow them again in the fall. I'm not going to be growing squash for the summertime. It's just too hard here in Florida. But that did really well here. We have grown cantaloupe really successfully in this bed, and we also are growing Dixie Queen watermelons that are growing very happily. The cantaloupes and the watermelons are just loving the in-ground garden beds. My only regret about those are that critters really like them and they want to attack them, which has definitely been happening. So I need to figure out a way to protect the cantaloupes and the watermelons before planting them again in this particular area. Oh, and I almost forgot, my proudest garden moment this year was my little butternut squash. Okay, I have tried to grow butternut squash for years and never grown it successfully. Finally did it in the in-ground rows, and I've got at least 15 in the refrigerator right now. We still have more that are still just pumping out. That has been one of my best things I've grown this year. We have the Martinez Roma tomato, which I don't really know what I expected when I picked this out. I thought they were going to be a little bit more like a Roma tomato, but they're actually like exactly like a cherry tomato. So it's like I just grew more and more cherry tomatoes, a really small variety, and I probably wouldn't grow them again this year or next spring, just because it's like I don't really know what to do with all these teensy little tomatoes. If you guys have any suggestions other than making sun-dried tomatoes out of them, please let me know. So overall, the spring season was so abundant, and it was just a really great season. We loved coming out here like every night as a family, discovering new things and teaching our son more and more about self-preservation. We've been learning so much about, you know, living off our land and being more sustainable than ever. We've had the biggest garden of our lives, and it's only going to get much, much bigger. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the spring season summary. Now we're straight on into the summertime, and that's really when your like garden skills are going to come out to play in the summertime, because it is definitely not as easy to grow in the summer. There's more pests, there's more heat, there's more rain, and you got to be on your A game. So if you are interested, definitely hit that subscribe button to see how I tackle that. And thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.